Imagine they tell you, oh, by the way, all your bank accounts are frozen. It's gone. The money is gone.
Don't put an unnecessary target on your back.
To take this power away from those central entities and give people self-sovereignty.
It's a new era with Bitcoin.
Wow, this thing is going to change the world. Bitcoin is a way for anyone to open a bank account in 2 seconds.
I actually love gamifying my life myself. So when I heard about the Yzer app and I saw it and you're like, oh, I can play a game, I can get educated with playing that app and taking the quizzes and the getting the right answers. And I even get Satoshis for that. That sounds like a really nice idea. Like, where is this gamifying Bitcoin education coming from? Why is that the way you want to educate people, and how do you do that with Yzer?
The idea came from Duolingo, right? So I was Duolingo users, and looking at the way they teach the languages, I thought it's much better than the traditional way. And from that we started. I mean, it was not just me, right? It's me and my team. So I'm a co-founder. We're 5 co-founders, so we have quite a diverse team. That helps, in terms of generating ideas and on the also for operational stuff. But so the idea came from Duolingo. We thought what makes them a bit special and different is the way they're able to gamify the learning process. And we saw a big need for education in the Bitcoin space. So maybe I can take the story a bit back to how we got into the idea of building Yzers. But initially, I think like most people, I first heard about Bitcoin. That was quite early, actually. My cousin founded a Bitcoin exchange in Canada, so in 2015. So I heard about Bitcoin roughly in 2013, 14. Obviously, back in the days, I was like, what's that? Magic internet money. I was not interested at all. My background is in the the traditional finance industry. I was working for private equity, then working for a VC. So I was very involved in the fiat system. So I didn't believe in that at all. Around 2015, I would say 15, 16, I started trading a bit because I would trade bits, gambling, buy some oil, buy some, S&P. And then, I saw this Bitcoin thing coming up, and it was on my trading platform. It was like a super basic trading platform. And I saw, it was going up a lot, then going down a lot. There was a lot of volatility. So I thought, that's a good way to trade it. So I started trading it. Obviously that didn't work out for me. And then, from there, I started, hearing about Ethereum, hear about, those other different coins. And, during the ICO boom, 2016, 17, I also got a little bit involved. I thought, some of those have good utility or like good, use cases. So I thought there's potential, and especially with my background in finance, especially in VC. My focus, in VC, you focus on fundraising. So I thought that's a great way to fundraise, right? It's so much less friction than the traditional fundraising process. And from there, I realized, so from there, I got into, crypto, crapto, as we like to call it. And then I realized, some of the downfall that actually it's not, that easy. It's not that simple. It's not just about the use case. There's more than just, does it have a good story? Is it easy to fundraise? It's about, what is the objective of the team behind it, right? What are they really trying to achieve? What stops them from actually going out there and scam people? And this is where, the regulation aspect comes into play. So when you're a company, a startup trying to fundraise, there are regulations or rules that you need to follow. But when you're a crypto startup trying to fundraise, especially with the ICO back in the days, there was no rules. You could just issue a token, no disclosure, no requirements to fundraise from accredited investors. You could just issue a token. Someone can buy $10 of it, and then that's it. You didn't even have to disclose where's the money going, like how, where. They send you 10. Let's say 1 million people sends you $10, right? So you have $10 million. Where is it? What do you do with it? Who checks what you do with this money? So from there, I started realizing that more than the use case, it's about the efficacy of the people behind those projects. And one thing led to the other. We met with the co-founders, and we were all quite passionate about Bitcoin, but we saw that there was this issue about education, and people would conflate Bitcoin with crypto and just box all of those things into one single, let's say, industry. And we our mission was to start saying, okay, let's teach those people, let's explain what's the difference between those different assets, because in my opinion, those are two very distinct asset classes. One is obviously a commodity, and are obviously companies, right? I mean, people will love to say they're not, but it's really hard to argue that they're not companies. Actually, one funny thing I do when I'm, trying to orange pill people and they ask me about, those different crypto companies, I tell them, well, one simple reason why they're not the same. Let's go through this. For instance, let's talk about Ethereum, right? Who's the founder of Ethereum? They'll be like, oh, Vitalik. All right, cool. Do they have like a management team? Yeah, there is, this guy and that guy. All right, do they have a roadmap? Oh, yeah, they're about to implement this thing and that thing. I'm like, yeah, well, you just described a company, right? So that's just simple. In Bitcoin, there's no founder. There is a founder, but he's not here. There's no, it's a symbol, right? There's no management team. There's no roadmap. There's no. It's an asset without an issuer. There's no pre-sale, right? So, one of the questions I asked as well is, did they do an ICO or a pre-sale, right? So, ultimately, you guide them to understanding that one is just a company with a founding team that raised money and that put that money to work with a specific objective of achieving certain roadmaps. Company, where the other one is more like gold, is an asset without issuer. It's a commodity that is out there that has specific rules that people cannot change and that can't be controlled. So I think that was the idea behind Yzer, is to really bring to light the difference in those two asset classes. And getting back to your it was a long way to answer your gamification question, but getting back to that, we thought, what would be the best way to not just get people to learn, but incentivize them, because learning is always complicated. It's always hard. You always have to give like a cookie to people. Like you have to reward them to learn. So that's how we thought about including gamification into the app. And gamification is not just about the sats rewards, right? So sat rewards is one aspect of gamification, but there's also the aspect of getting cards, getting XP, getting level ups and perks, and more than that, also there is a social element. So we included leaderboards, we included different sort of games and challenges. So today, actually, we started our second Bitcoin Games Night. So this is also something that is quite popular. What we do is that we do it's like there's basically two phases. There's an online qualifier phase where everyone plays, answers some quiz to be in the final, and then after those 3 days of qualification, we do the top 10 gets invited to the final, and this is live on the call where they compete, and they're like different rounds, and it's actually quite fun. And it's all around Bitcoin and financial education knowledge, and at the end there's a big prize for the winner. So this is how we gamify it. It's more than just sat rewards. It's engagement, social activities, and other sort of token hits.
Is that your full-time project now? So you worked before in the Fiat world with venture capital, as you said it, and now you switched completely to a Bitcoin project, and Bitcoin, like you also teach about finance, but it's like a Bitcoin project, Bitcoin standard company. How's that change going? And you can also like what you just wanted to say, like you incorporate that in the answer if you want.
We did take quite a leap of faith, but I think that's what Bitcoin does to you, right? It's once you start to understand it, you're like, wow, this thing is going to change the world, and you start to get passionate, and just nothing else really matters at that stage. So we did take a leap of faith. We started a company a year and a half ago. It took us 6 months roughly to get to market, and now we've had the app running for over a year. So yeah, it was quite an interesting journey. It hasn't been easy. I'm going to be very honest, right? It's what every entrepreneur faces. And also the timing, because we're a Bitcoin only company, we don't do ICO, we don't have tokens. So that means that we have to raise through the traditional means. So it's really like it's a double-edged sword, right? Uh, I'm sure if we had the token and had thought about and we're teaching crypto, we would have probably did fundraising and raised a lot of money. But we wanted to stay ethical, so we went through the traditional VC route, which was quite challenging in the last year, as I'm sure you've been aware of. So we're still fundraising, looking for partners to help us grow. So yeah, it's been a fun journey.
What's the business model behind it? Do you play ads, or is it like there's some subscription you can buy on there?
Everyone was just annoyed by those ads. It's like, oh, whenever you get an ad, you have to wait 10 seconds, just like, fuck it. So we scrapped
Yeah.
the ads anyway. They were not making that much money. But we have several monetization uh, avenues. The first one is subscription. So we have subscription where a user can subscribe to get additional services. Obviously, we want the main app to be free and the main education aspect to be free. But we have things like weekly news bites and live Bitcoin classes, as I mentioned earlier, where you can subscribe and get those extra features. That's one. Then we have Bitcoin only sponsorships. So that's we work with Bitcoin only companies that would do product placement at the end of specific classes. Yeah, so those are the two main areas of monetization. We're also working with several other companies and people to try to get into schools and universities. So we have quite a big partnership that we're going to be announcing soon. I'm not sure if I can say it now, depending on when this is going to air, but it's with one of the biggest, educator in South America. I'm sure you're getting the reference that teaches, with the book. So we're going to announce this partnership, and hopefully we can get to schools and potentially get some monetization aspect on that side.
That's really cool. I think a lot of Bitcoiners that are in the space still, or they're working in a Fiat job. I mean, there are a lot of Bitcoiners that like their usual normal job that has nothing to do with Bitcoin. Like that's also the thing of Bitcoin. It's not something everybody has to work on. It's like gold is like digital gold, and you can just save your money in there. It's like a protocol where you can do whatever you want with it. So not every Bitcoiner has to work on Bitcoin, but I think there's like a big amount of Bitcoiners with an entrepreneurial spirit that want to get into the community, build something, and it's like they want to contribute something to community. Some are just like content creators like myself, some are just building apps, some are just doing different stuff. Maybe like you have a unique perspective now because you started this like 1.5 years ago. If you said like half a year developing, 1 year is not an app live. What would you say to people that are now like on the edge, like they have an idea, they want to do it, but they're not sure. They are on the edge of that leap front that you said. What do you have as advice, and maybe take us a little bit to your founding story, and it's like
Sure.
maybe there are like some challenges and interesting stories on the way you can tell.
100%. Well, what I would say to start with is if you have a job, don't quit your job to start, and jump straight into it. Do it gradually. Get, an idea, work on it over the weekends, spend, your nights on it, and slowly, ease into it. That would provide you, it will make it easier on you, both in terms of, financial, on the financial side, but also mentally, right? So you don't have that stress of saying, right, I need to do this. Otherwise, I'm not going to know how I'm going to feed myself for the next few months. So I would say gradually ease into it. It definitely helps to have co-founders, because, getting into a journey with other people that are equally passionate helps, because sometimes you're going to be down and your co-founder is going to lift you up. Sometimes it's going to be the other way around, right? Your co-founder is going to be down, you're going to be the one lifting him up or her up. So it's always interesting to come in with someone else. And I would say it's important to have, technical someone that has technical background. Depends obviously on what sort of company you want to build. Let's say if it has to do something with apps or with building actually a product, it's always good to have a technical person involved. And I would say on your cap table that would be even more useful because outsourcing the development, it can become a big problem. It's going to cost you money. You're going to have people that are not very involved or not very incentivized to work for the long run. And then those people can always cut you off any moment if you don't understand how to handle the code. So I would say that this is obviously the basics, but then in terms of where is there potential, I think there's huge potential in many different areas, many different industries that could be impacted by Bitcoin. It's really important to see first, what is it that you're passionate about. It could be educating, it could be helping people that have that that don't have access to financial services. So helping underbanked people. It could be about teaching the kids. It could be about building a product for degen gamblers. I mean, you're going to have a bit of everything. So it's finding something that you're passionate about, trying to understand how can Bitcoin help in that field, and just getting started. It's never going to be easy. It's always going to be tough, especially the first few years. But I think having a clear monetization objective is definitely going to help. Is understanding, okay, based on this idea, how do I monetize? And what is your total addressable market? If you're doing something where the addressable market is 5 people, it's probably not going to be taking it very far. So you have to see how can I get to an addressable market that makes sense. But then I think there's two ways to look at any sort of business. There's going the venture route, meaning for a venture-backed business, you're going to have to think, how do I get to 100 million in sales? Right? If you can't get to 100 million in sales, right, you're probably not going to be venture-backed. But then there are other businesses where you don't need to do 100 million sales. They could be projects where you don't take on too much investment. You build it for yourself, maybe you and your co-founder, and you generate maybe $1 million a year, and that's quite good. You make a 10-20% a profit margin, and that sustains you depending on on your goals. But you have to understand which way and which route you're going, because those are two very different routes. Yeah, so I think those are the key elements. Do something that you love, understand what is your end goal, what is the addressable market, and think about monetization very early on. Don't, back in the days, it was easy to get funded with just an idea and say, we'll figure out the monetization later down the road. Now that money is a bit tighter, getting to monetization, proving that you're able to generate revenue becomes more essential.
Yeah, it's so important that you have not only a way there, but maybe you can even like see small steps of it. Like if you have an app and you have already like the first few users, or like at least like a list where you can like, oh, they are prepared to be in this app, and this is how I can monetize. It's always interesting. I talked also, you probably know Relay, the Bitcoin exchange,
We love that.
and I talked with the co-founder Adam. I also talked with the other co-founder Julian, but Adam told a really interesting story. They founded the company with like, they got founding for like 15,000 euros, and they took them now 3 months we're trying that out, and in that 3 months they built that. And it was interesting for me because there are companies that are non-existing, and they just like, let's try it out. And if you're young, I think you can definitely do it, but there has to be something behind, because they have been in developing of the strategy for like a year, and then they took a leap. They did not have a lot at that time, but they had some they had some users, they had some email things, they had some no-code app before, they had some interesting people. Like they didn't start with zero, and I think that's important before you go ahead, quit everything, and go into this whole entrepreneurs. I mean, it's also a possible way, but I don't expect to make money anytime soon.
Yeah, it's harder than you think. It takes longer than you think. all your projections are going to be off by a couple years. So be
Yeah.
prepared. Don't let this, because otherwise you're just going to be too stressed. But yeah,
I
Relay is
want.
a beautiful story. Relays, they're crushing it. I think they're raised their CSB. I think they're on the great path. So really love what those guys are building. I'm a user of Relay, so really love it now with
Yeah,
the Lightning integration. So great product.
they're they're really good. Um, in order to have the app and you educate people, you have to curate, and I think this is one of the hardest things to do. You have to curate all the information about Bitcoin and get it into the app, and not only get the right information, but also cut out the information that is not necessary. Because if you just like you have too much information in there, it gets long, it gets messy, and
Uh,
it's like bad. How do you curate all the right information and then present it in a way people like to learn it? It's
that is a tough question you're asking here. This is probably the hardest thing, right? That we've had to do. And I'm going to be honest, we had some trial and error. We started, for instance, I will give you some simple example of something that didn't work out is that we were using the word crypto, right? So we were saying, crypto wallet, or just use the word crypto. And people started lashing it, like going crazy on us. They're like, well, this is not a Bitcoin only company. How can you use the word crypto? We're like, okay, well, sorry, we'll just take it off. We'll completely take crypto out of all those classes. But at the end of the day, it's a tough thing to curate because as you said, right, how do you curate without providing your own bias? So, I think it's about understanding who's your target market. Based on your target market, you're going to have to understand, okay, well, if my target market are Bitcoin only people, this is how I'm going to have to speak. However, if my target market are no coiners that we're trying to onboard into Bitcoin, we have to give ourselves a bit more leeway, right? We can't be as strict. We can't be as maxi as some of the people would like us to be. So what we're trying to do is really trying to take an objective approach, I would say, trying to only be factual, right? So we're trying not to put our own opinion into that, but just be factual, right? How does Bitcoin work? This is how it works, right? There's no opinion based on that, and of course, you can extend that to the basics, but as you go deeper and deeper, it becomes more and more complicated because then we get into, for instance, some of the conversations that are happening today in Bitcoin, right? Spam filters, covenant, right? So what would you do about that? How do you explain that without taking any side? So I think it's all about explaining the underlying principle or the underlying technology without saying whether it's good or bad. It's just saying what it is. So I think this is the approach we've been taking. So even when we spoke about many topics that I would say are a bit touchy, but we always do it in a neutral way. We BitVM, for instance, was quite a touchy topic, but we just explained, said this is how it works, this is what it does, those are the risks, those are the potential rewards. It's for you to make up your own mind. We're not going to tell you what to think. We're just going to bring you the facts behind the stories. So I think this is how we curate that. And I'm lucky to have great co-founders with us. So we split that work. And we have different views. We have diversity in our backgrounds. We have a woman as well in the team. So we and different backgrounds, different ethnicities, and so forth. So it does help to bring about a more global view of what's going on and how to explain those topics to different type of people.
That's amazing. It's like when you have so many different angles you can explain Bitcoin, and you have so many different topics you can cover in Bitcoin, and it's an overwhelming task, I think, when you have to do it and you have to trial error and do it over and over again. It's like, but it's something that is worth doing, because you might get some people out there that actually understand Bitcoin and then get into the whole rabbit hole, then get into all the things, and you might improve someone's life, and even the possibility of that, and probably the app already did that, but even the possibility of that is amazing. I think that's something worth standing up for.
Success stories is people, that came in and ultimately understood that we're about to get scammed in a few different projects, and came out focused on Bitcoin, and then those projects went to zero, and they're like, oh, thank God, I figured this out before the rug pull. So yeah, we have some of those great stories, and people teaching and using the app uh, to teach their own community, especially in Africa. I can't remember. That's really a shame. But we have someone that really supports us in Africa that's been using our app to teach his own community. Maybe in the footnote, I'll send you his name and his tag because he really does an unbelievable job. So yeah, people are using our app to teach our community, and this is actually what we're most proud of is this aspect of being a tool for empowerment across different regions and globally.
It's amazing. You also write a lot about on Twitter, and you post. And
That's like
I read through your highlights, and I liked it so much because there is this one word, and it's not in every tweet, but it's just like this one theme. It's like staying humble, and don't tell anyone, don't tell everybody how much Bitcoin do you have. Don't tell I told you so. Stay humble, keep your mouth shut. And when I read this, is like something, oh, that's a Bitcoiner who gets it. Who That's a Bitcoiner who understands that bragging and this fiat mindset and this whole thing we have in fiat is not the way to go. It's a new era with Bitcoin, and don't put an unnecessary target on your back when you don't want to put that on the back. It's like, how did you get that since a long time, or is this something Bitcoin told you?
Oh,
Bitcoin teach you?
100% Bitcoin. 100% Bitcoin. So I think that's the beauty of Bitcoin, right? It humbles you really fast. Because as I said, I started getting into Bitcoin in 15. So I was riding the waves in 17, 18, right? And then boom, so that's when you really learn that there's so much volatility in this game, right? It goes up, it goes down, so there's no point in talking too much. The more you talk, and this is also maybe I'm a bit superstitious, but I feel like every time I brag, every time I'm like, hey, look at Bitcoin, the next day it crashes. Right? Obviously that's not the case. I'm not that powerful, but I feel like, there's some sort of like karma around. If you talk too much about the price going up and you show off too much, you're going to get bitten. So that's the way, that's something I kind of want to explain to people is that the fiat gains are nice, but firstly, until you realize them, they're no gains, right? They're not really gains. If it's a number on your phone, it's not a gain. And then secondly, like if you do realize them, then you're out of the game as well, right? If you take out an exit and get into fiat, so the price is not as much as important as the mission, right? So it's not about flexing on people and saying, oh, look at my holding. It's more about how can this technology make an impact? How can we solve some of the biggest, because this, I think it's one of the few technologies that is really looking to solve one of the biggest issues that we have in the world right now. Because some people say money is the root of all evil, but that's not true. Money is not the root of all evil. It's the way we weaponize money that becomes a problem. We use money to enslave people, right? And this can be seen with many different organizations. I'm not going to mention all of them, but there are ways we use money to enslave and put pressure and do things to people that are not necessarily in their best interest. And I think the whole objective of Bitcoin is to take this power away from those central entities, or this elite, and bring and give people self-sovereignty. And I think if your only objective is to say, okay, I'm going to take my Bitcoin and it's going to go to $1 million, I'm going to sell and buy 2 Lambos, then you're not getting it. You're not understanding the value of Bitcoin. And more than that, if that's the way you think about it, at 50K, you're out. 100K, you're out. 500K, you're definitely out of the game. You're not going to last with this mentality. You're not going to be able to sustain. So I think this is something we see a lot with people that just came into Bitcoin. They just came in, they started buying, maybe a year ago, a year and a half ago, and they're seeing their first bull run and they're getting excited. And I think it's normal. The first time I was like that. I saw a bull run, I was shouting to everyone, "Look at me, I'm a genius! Look at me, I'm a genius!" And then 1 year later, I was a retard. So it's about understanding, that it's a long-term game. It's a long-term game, and until I'm not even sure when we're going to get out, like when you can start to celebrate. I think, of course, when I post those things, a lot of people tell me, yeah, you can't be that strict. You have to celebrate small wins. That's what keeps you going, small wins and this and that. And sure, you can celebrate those small wins, but I think you should celebrate them internally. You should be happy, with yourself and say, oh, that's good. That's a positive sign. But going, and bragging about that, going to people that invest in other stuff and say, haha, you're a loser, I'm smarter than you, doesn't bring any value to you, to the community, to anything. It just gives them, a tool to beat you when the price goes down. So I think ultimately, I think it was Marty who said, who initially coined the phrase, stay humble and stack sats. But it's one that I like to take as well.
I'm super excited to announce that this podcast got the first ever sponsor. 21 Bitcoin is Bitcoin only from day one, and they teach and preach self-custody. This is my go-to exchange when someone asks me, oh, where can I buy my Bitcoin from? This is the easiest entry for Bitcoiners. And if you want lower fees, plus at the same time support this podcast, use code Robin and click the link in the description. This question just came up in my mind. What's the difference actually between bragging and celebration? Like, because I never thought about that, but when you celebrate something with friends and you're like, oh, I reached that milestone, and you like, for example, I don't know, you build a company and you got your first million users in the app, and you're like, this is an achievement I worked so hard for in my life, and I want to celebrate with my best friends. But it's also kind of a bragging when you really look at it, like you show off to your friends. I mean, the mindset and the intentions are different, probably,
Exactly.
but it could be also understood as bragging. How do you see that?
I think it's a good point you're bringing here. Like, it's I would say bragging is when you're trying to put other people down and trying to put yourself up, and celebrating is when you don't have this in mind. You're just like happy and you celebrate something and an achievement, and you do it without necessarily trying to put people down. Bragging is more like, haha, look at me, I did it, you're stupid. This is kind of bragging. And celebrating and saying, oh, that's amazing. We're Bitcoin is up. It's going to allow me, to support my family, support my parents, help those kids, help, those animals, whatever, it is that you're doing. I think this is a celebration, is using the positive to bring more positive, whereas bragging is using the positive to create negative emotions. Right? So I would say that's probably the way I see the difference. Because of course, when Bitcoin, if one day Bitcoin will go up, I'm pretty sure of that, and I'm going to be doing good things, but I'm not going to be trying to put people down. I'm going to try to help and bring joy and happiness to people that don't necessarily had the same opportunity. And I would say that is more a celebration of the success of Bitcoin. But I know people that as soon as this goes up, the first thing they're going to do is call their friends and tell them how smart they are and how dumb the other person is. And that's that's a different mentality.
Yeah, I usually practice telling people about Bitcoin more when the price is down. Like in the starting, I was telling everybody about Bitcoin no matter what the price is. Then I went more to like, I only tell people when it's like a little down and not on the top. But it's really hard because people ask when it's on the top and are not interested when it's down. Now I'm completely switched where I'm like, I have my social media, everybody in my family and friends and all my environment knows I'm there. Bitcoin guy. So people automatically come to me when they have questions that they want to know, "Oh, where can I buy?" All these beginner questions. So this is like a really interesting way. Like, I stay out of the orange pilling. I orange pill only people that are actually interested in orange pilling, because you cannot force anybody to Bitcoin. And I think Yzer is an interesting approach to that, because it's just an app where you can send people and they can learn about Bitcoin in a more fun way, because you can also send them podcasts, you can also send them books, and I always recommend first send them something video and easy to consume,
Exactly.
or an app or something that's like that gets easier. Because if you send them a book first, if they read a lot of books, they probably have a list of 10 books they want to read first, and if they don't read a lot of books, they probably don't read that book also. So book is a big hurdle, and they need a lot of motivation to get through this. It's like an interesting approach. I like the approach that we gamified with an app.
Yeah, and back maybe one last point on the bragging and humbleness. I think also, if you do want to brag and if you do want to sound, like the smartest person, I think I made a tweet where it says like, when Bitcoin is up and I think it was for Thanksgiving or for Christmas, talking about when you're going to gather with your army and Bitcoin was up, I think at that time. I said, what the biggest flex is actually it's not to go and say to everyone, look at Bitcoin. Is actually everyone knowing that you're in Bitcoin, everyone knowing that you crushed it in the last couple of months, but just coming and saying nothing about it. That is actually a much stronger flex, right? Because people are like, why is he not talking about it? He should be talking about it. But he's not. He's just like here, smiling, having a good time. And, that's actually the biggest flex. Is people to know
I,
that you crushed it, but you don't say anything about it.
that is amazing, Bang. I love that. I will clip that in the beginning.
Good one.
That should be heard by everyone, and unfortunately, only a small percentage make it to the end. So, like usually between 20 and
All right.
30% make it to the end. So I will quickly
We'll clip
clip
that.
that to the beginning.
So thank you.
Uh, what do you think is the most important? Like, if someone gets through a podcast and maybe they're a little bit newer to Bitcoin, what's the most important thing about Bitcoin you want everybody to understand?
Interesting. I think there's two things that are crucial for people to understand. And I think those are the two things that are the most talked about, but also misunderstood things. And it's also a tweet that I wanted to make when Joe from, CNBC or CNN, whatever, one of those channels is Squawk, Joe Squawk, when he was speaking with Gary Gensler. And there were 2 points that came up, and obviously Joe was defending Bitcoin, but I think he didn't do a great job because those are crucial items that he completely kind of missed the point, which is number one, the decentralization of Bitcoin, and number two, the utility of Bitcoin. Because I think those are the two kind of core, like crucial elements of Bitcoin. Because people don't really understand what it means. Oh, something is decentralized, and what is the impact of decentralization on the asset itself, right? So when people talk about decentralization, there's a lot of confusion. So what does it mean? Is it the mining that is decentralized? Is it the coin ownership that is decentralized? And I think people don't understand that it's actually an interplay between three different actors. There's the miners, there are the full nodes, and there are the coin holders. And because those three different entities have diverging or different incentive mechanism, and they all need to somehow collaborate, it's hard for any of one of those entities to centralize and to take control. Right? Miners have an incentive to get rewards. Full nodes have an incentive to keep the chain or the time chain as clear and as censorship resistant. And coin holders have an incentive to maximize their holding, their profit. And when you put those different actors together, it's really that's what brings centralization. Because we saw with block size war of 2015 to 17 that miners by themselves don't have the power to control the chain. And this is what we saw. We saw that full nodes were able to actually block the increase in the block size. Why? Because for them, it didn't make sense for them, because if you want to run the full node, you want decentralization of the nodes, block size larger block size would be actually a detriment to that. So they block this element, and then of course what they try to do a hard fork, right? They try to hard fork the system, and that's when you see the interplay with the coin holders. So now you're a coin holder, you have the two coins, right? You have the coin on your old chain, and then you have the coin on the new chain, and then that's for you to make an economical decision. What are you going to do? Which one are you going to sell? Because obviously you're going to believe that one's going to work and the other one's not going to work. So you're going to want to sell the one that doesn't work. And by selling the coin that you don't believe in, it's going to influence the profitability of mining on that, or it's going to affect the value of the chain, and ultimately the profitability if there is no transactions. So this is the interface that ensures decentralization. I think this is something that is very, very misunderstood out there. People don't really understand what full nodes have to do with anything. So I would say that's the first. And the second I mentioned was the utility. People, and that was a point that Gary brought up. They were like, yeah, what's the utility? There's no utility. I'm like, there's no utility. This guy is literally like, how do you say it nicely? But basically he doesn't understand, because he's such in a privileged position in life that he doesn't really understand the utility of a monetary system that cannot be coerced, that cannot be controlled. I'm from Lebanon, right? So I don't know, 2.5, 3 years ago, from one day to the next, they blocked all banks, blocked your bank account. So people like my family lives in Lebanon. People had, it's like a normal day, and then the next day, imagine they tell you, oh, by the way, all your bank accounts are frozen. It's gone. The money is gone. It just disappeared. And it's not third world country, right? It's Lebanon. It's Beirut. It's quite an advanced city. It's you expect some sort of stability. Obviously, it's not the most stable, but you expect some sort of stability. No one expected that to happen. So that's something that. How can you say there's no utility? It's money that can't be controlled, that can't be coerced, that can't be confiscated. And does that only happen in Lebanon? No, you saw this happen in Canada, right? During the trucker protest, you started freezing bank accounts in Canada. So they're clearly, and so those are two examples, but we can go on and on, right? There are even countries being banned from the SWIFT. I'm not going to mention the country because I don't know if YouTube's going to be happy with that, but there are whole countries that are being, banned from the SWIFT, that are being sanctioned. And then individuals from those countries and, all over the place. So money is being used, the financial system is being used, is being weaponized against the people. And this is one crazy use case, is having a money that can't be confiscated, right? Then you have a second utility, which is the financial inclusion. So if you look at specifically, and those are all the things that Gary doesn't understand, because clearly he doesn't have any of those issues being the head of the SEC in the US. But if you look at developing countries, not everyone has access to bank account or to the financial system. It's complicated. People don't have the paper, the documents to open bank accounts. Bank obviously favorize people with a lot of money. It doesn't make economical sense for them to start opening bank accounts to people that can't afford to have money in there, can't afford to buy their product, can't afford to pay the fees. So for them, they're going to obviously favorize people that have a lot of money. So Bitcoin is a way for anyone to open a bank account in 2 seconds. Take a phone, download the app, boom, I have a bank account. Then I can trade. I can open this bank account and trade with anyone from across the world. In 2 minutes, I can send it to them. Like, how is that not a great use case, a utility for Bitcoin? So, I mean, those are, two utilities. And then, we can talk about utilities all day long. But a third one is the fact that it's a bearer asset, right? So it's the only bearer asset like gold. And that's actually a tweet I posted today, that it's actually the only bearer asset like gold that has absolute scarcity, but can be transferred, right, cross borders without asking permission, and let's say without storage cost, and without having to go through custom or so forth, right? So you can literally have a seed phrase, memorize the words, have like $1 billion, and go from the US to India, or to any country in the world without having to ask permission, without having to go through a bunch of barriers to move your wealth. So this is also quite a solid use case. So I would say, all those things combined make quite strong utilities for Bitcoin. And I think this is also something quite misunderstood, specifically from people that don't have those sort of problems. So I think those are crucial
And,
elements for people to understand.
and that's amazing. Did you live in Lebanon when this happened, or was it just family connections?
No, I was lucky. I was not. I was not there. I grew up in Europe, but like my whole family is there. Right, half of my family is living there. So it was extremely hard for them. It's like from one day to the next, they stopped the thing, and any new money. So because they traded mostly in dollars, right? Most people played dollars in Lebanon. It was kind of like the second currency. And so your old dollars were called, just old dollars, and any new money was called like fresh money, fresh dollar. Like they had a new name, different accounts for the fresh money. Like it was a whole like nonsense things that they were able to create, and people were really struggling. So even if you wanted to take out, let's say, some of your money, because at some point they started, saying that you can send money, and then even that money that you take out. So if you receive money in dollar, let's say it's fresh dollars, you want to take it out, you only get you would get a fraction of it. So let's say you take out 100, but it costs you $200 on your bank account. So it was a whole disaster for people, and some people had their whole life savings in banks, and the whole system collapsed. And I think a couple months later there was like an explosion or something. So like it was this big explosion that was also a big disaster for the country. So it was tough for them, and getting and that's actually something that I'm surprised people don't understand Bitcoin as much as they should in this country, because they're literally a place where everyone should understand the value of Bitcoin, but still they're a bit like, which is quite weird.
You have to have the pain to understand it, and they had the pain, but
They have
you
the pain.
also have to crush some Fiat mindset, some learnings you had along the way. In your mind, you have to unlearn things and be
100%.
ready to learn something new. So I think the pain helps to understand because like how do people learn new stuff? Either they fall in love with something, or they hate something, or they have a lot of pain, or they have a big incentive. And there has to be something big for people to shift in a big way. And money is so fundamental to us, right? It's
So
a big
fundamental.
area and fundamental to us. And so they really have to shift something.
But I think also one thing is that sometimes when you have so many problems, like you're just trying to survive, right? We're lucky, we're extremely lucky. We're in a top, percentage of, there are very few of us, I would say, that have this luxury of having the time to think and sit down and, just trying to philosophize on what money is. It's something that it's a luxury. So some people are just like, listen, I'm just trying to survive here. I just need to make money today so I can feed my family and, buy clothes and just make sure that everything is fine. I don't have time to learn what money is. I don't really care right now. Give me US dollar, I'll be fine. I'll buy some food and some water, and that's all I need. So there's also this aspect, right? Is you need to be a certain, certain level of of not wealth, but having some sort of comfort, certain level of comfort before you can start to really question the system and start to go against it, because it does take financial resources to fight the system. You can't just fight it, with no financial resources. The way I like to say is that uh, I don't fight the war physically. I just fight it with my money. I just sell fiat every month. I sell all the fiat I can, and this is my way to fight. It's not physical. It's financial. So yeah.
It's funny for me when I think about that because for me the fiat system and how you describe it, people cannot really save in anything, and people are just trying to make as much money so they can get food and shelter. And when you think back to actual slavery, or to actual
Yep.
servants of like rich households, what did they got provided? They got a house next to the good house, was a servant's house, and they got provided with food and shelter. That's it. And most people cannot have it, they don't have more. And you're like, but they can choose where they work. And yes, they can choose, but do they really have a choice?
It's an illusion of choice. But that's something exactly, something we're seeing that a lot of people are realizing. It's like I work a job, right, to make money, and that money, the only thing I can do with that money is basically to pay for clothes to go to the job, say pay for a car that gets me to the job, pay for food to sustain me to be at the job. Like basically I'm working to pay for things that are only just for the work I'm doing. So like I'm really not getting anything. I'm getting no added value here. Like all the money I'm making is being kind of used to make it. So like what's the point if the terminal value is zero, right? Make money to use it to make it? No point. So a lot of people are realizing this, that it's actually, and I saw this funny meme. I'm not sure if it's true or not because you can't trust anything these days. But like there was a meme saying like back in the day, slave had like 4 months of holiday and would stop work at like 6 p.m. because the master would know that they need to be well rested in order to do a good job, right? It's probably safe, but it does speak a bit of the way people are, let's say, used these days to achieve bigger objectives of the elite, I would say.
And I think it's also like an delicate topic because there were slavery back in the day that was way worse than any 9 to 5 wage slavery kind of going on, but it's still not a good system that prefers people that do hard work, because if you work hard, you should get rewarded. Obviously, if you maybe do the wrong work, like, but there's so many exceptions to that. But you should have something more, and this fundamental problem with the money you're saving in something that someone else steals through inflation from you, and we cannot say, oh, but he or she can invest money. Like, yes, but why does he has to do that? Why does everybody has to be a portfolio manager
On
just to
top,
survive?
literally. Yeah. The
And
thing
that's
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 slow debt, right? Slow debt is something that people don't uh they like predictability. No, they like the predictability of knowing I'm going to lose 5% on inflation per year, but I know that's predictable. So it's people like predictability. It's like the story of the frog in the
in,
boiling water, right?
in that context. Oh, by the way, the frog in the water, I heard, because you mentioned it right now, I heard that it's actually not true. I don't know if that's true.
Obviously.
I just saw a random video somewhere on the internet.
Like
It's
look at that
completely
frog.
unrelated. Uh, Completely unrelated. I think it was like 5 years ago. There was some doctor that made that experiment and just like actually put a frog in the water, and he realized, yes, the frog, he jumps out no matter how long. At some point, the pain is too much and he jumps out. And
It's
it's an
unbelievable. You can't trust anything you see on the internet these days. Nothing.
Yeah, but it's still a good analogy, I think, because I think a lot of people stay in, and I think this is even extended over the fiat monetary system. It's extended to life. They're staying in toxic relationships, they're staying in toxic workplaces, and all this stuff.
Predictability.
But uh, it's
Comfort zone
predictability, and
predictability.
it's a massive thought. But you should jump out if the pain is too much, as the frog also does.
Yeah. It's time.
In the context, the actual question I wanted to ask you is, what is financial freedom for you? When we see all the fiat and Bitcoin going on, we see wage slavery, we see entrepreneurship, we see all the different aspects you can do in the world, and all the different areas where people are also in. When does someone reach a status of being financially free?
In life, right? I don't think there's a one answer fits all, but I think financial freedom, I would say, is there's two ways, right, of of seeing this thing, but I think they all lead to the same thing: is doing what you love. If you can do what you love, you're some way financially free. Because why do people do a job that they don't like, or they don't like, or they don't love? Sorry, is because they need the money to do something else, right? So this is what this is the opposite of being financially free, is doing something that you dislike to get the money so that you can buy and survive. I think financial freedom, it means having the ability to do what you love. So either it's you love your a job, you actually have a job, so you could be, I don't know, an artist, you could be an educator, you could be anything, any job, a teacher, whatever, and you actually love that, and so you're financially free because uh, you have the freedom to do what you love. Or it could be, through passive income. You have enough income that you have, some sort of uh, freedom to actually not have to do something you dislike. Now, why is Bitcoin relevant in this financial freedom aspect? Is because Bitcoin is probably the only asset that can't be taken away from you. I think it's back to this idea of not being something that can't be confiscated, and something that can't be inflated away, right? Is that, sure, you could say, well, my objective is to own a property, and then with that property, I'm going to rent it out, and then, yeah, I'm financially free. But here, there's many things that you need to take into account. I mean, depending on which country you live in, there's going to be a huge amount of taxes, right? If you live in most European country, you get taxed on property. There's property tax, so you lose, certain percentage of your house every year, so you have to pay for it. Then, if you rent it out, you have to, pay taxes on the income you make. Then, if you pass away and have to give it to your kid, also there's inheritance tax, right? So those are all the sort of taxes that you have to pay. On top of that, if tomorrow you say something that the government doesn't like, they can take it away. If tomorrow there's, the political situation changes in the country, I don't know, it turns communist, or it turns, with a different political group, you could also either lose it, have to pay more taxes. So there's a lot of uncertainty behind those zero real estate asset. And this is the same, with savings you have in your bank, or with any sort of investment you're going to make. There's always this sort of centralization, this sort of third party that actually controls your investment. You only have it as long as they want you to have it. Right? Your house is only yours as long as the government says it's yours. Tomorrow they say it's not yours, it's not yours. Your bank account, proof of being Lebanon, they say it's not yours, it's not yours. So this is what we mean by Bitcoin being financial freedom and self-sovereign, is that no one can fuck with it, right? It's yours, no one can steal it. Obviously, this means if you keep it in self-custody, because obviously if you hold it in custody with FTX, it's not yours anymore either, right? But this is what also self-custody is a crucial element that we can discuss maybe later. But once you hold in self-custody, it's yours. And this is the ultimate financial freedom. It's the ability to know that regardless of what happens around you, this is mine, no one can mess with it.
I think self-custody is actually a really good point here to get in, because if you're financially free and you have savings and you have financial power, if you give that financial power to someone else, which is in case FTX or any exchange, even if we talked before of Relay, there are also other really cool Bitcoin only exchange like 21 Bitcoin and stuff like that. But no matter who you give it to, they have it. Not legally, but physically they have it. And they can mess up, they can steal it, they can do whatever they want with it, because physically they have it and you don't have it. You only have like an IOU, you have a right to have it, but if you don't have it, like you just have a piece of paper then. So it's self-custody is really important. And maybe a question for you, and why do you think people still don't get the importance of self-custody, even though we had so many events in the last years that teach self-custody with Celsius, FTX? It's like I once took an history of that and made a tweet, and there's like 50 companies or something like that. There's so many events that went on. Why do people still don't get it?
They don't trust themselves. They don't trust themselves. That's it. They think, okay, this might happen. It hasn't happened to me. It will happen once, in the blue moon. They just think the chances of me losing my seed phrase is higher than the chances of Binance or whatever Coinbase going down, right? This is what they think. They don't trust themselves enough to self-custody. And this is something I see with people around me. There's a lot of my friends that are holding their coin on some sort of centralized exchange. And as much as I explain to them, listen, you might lose it all. They're like, yeah, it's okay. Like, I'm like, no, it's not okay. But like, it's hard because they just don't trust themselves. They're so used to this idea of custodian, of someone holding your assets for you. And they just think, it's going to be fine. They just, believe that, the chances are higher that they will mess up rather than, a Binance messing up or a Coinbase messing up or Robinhood, whatever, messing up. So I think it's that was the main issue. And it's just also they don't really understand how to use self-custody properly. A lot of the people I speak with, and those are people that have substantial amounts of money in Bitcoin. They don't understand how a wallet works, specifically how a seed phrase works. They think your Bitcoin is attached to a specific in self-custody, right? They think that your seed phrase is attached to a specific wallet, like, oh, my thing is in this wallet or in that wallet. I'm like, no, they're not in either wallet. They're on the blockchain, and the wallet is just a device that you use to open the door to the blockchain to see what's held by the address. That's all you do. It's not in there. So I think there's also this misconception that a lot of misconception. I think it's really. But let's be fair, it's not that simple. It really is not that simple to understand. You need to learn, take hours to dig into it, to understand the intricacies of 90% of the people that are into Bitcoin, they won't understand what's the difference between a private key and a seed phrase and which one is derived from which. Bit39. They have no idea what Bit39 is and how it introduced seed phrases. So it ain't that easy. You have to really want to learn about it. So I think what we need to do is find ways to improve, let's say, the UI, potentially, improve the key elements of what it means to self-custody. So yeah. So one big example that I want to mention is people using hardware wallets that make me laugh, because they're like, yeah, they don't understand that the hardware wallet is actually irrelevant. What matters is the private key, or the seed phrase, however you decide to store it. And they're like, yeah, but I have my hardware wallet here and there. I'm like, yeah, but that's irrelevant. Where is your seed phrase? Because anyway, you have to back it up, somehow. Right? This is what matters. The other ones, you can throw it away. It's okay. It doesn't matter. So this huge misconception.
And there's where most people actually, I think, mess it up. Because they get the hardware wallet, they do all the stuff, and then they put their seed phrase on iCloud. It's like, you can stick with an exchange.
Or they don't write it down. They're like, what? Yeah, exactly. But they don't write it down. They're just like, it's fine, I have the hardware wallet. But I'm like, no, that's not important. The most important is, like, literally the hardware, you reset it every time. You reset it. It's just like, depends how crazy you are, but like, this is not what matters here. But yeah, it's fun. It's a fun thing.
Absolutely, 100%.
Also, I just want to touch on one point.
For yourself?
Sorry, go on.
No, you go on. I would change. I would have
that actually comes up a lot when we speak about Bitcoin, self-custody, and financial sovereignty. Is a lot of people say, well, like, people don't have enough money to worry about saving. Like, Bitcoin is not a solution because it's too volatile and they don't have money. Like, most people don't save, right? Saving is not something that most people do. Most people end up the month with zero. They don't have any ability to save, and they're in debt. So I think this is something I want to bring up because I don't have the answer to this yet. I'm being frank. It's something that I think about a lot. Is how do we help those people that actually do not have the ability to save? So it's something that I try to think about, and I try to find solutions for. It's not going to be solution, at least a mental solution of saying, this is the way to become self-sovereign, to become financially independent, even if, you're in a situation where you cannot save, because those are the type of people that will say, well, you know what? I only have $100 or $1,000. I'm not going to put in Bitcoin. I'm going to gamble. I'm going to try to make 100x with this, a shitcoin. Because anyway, what's $1,000 going to do? $2,000? I'm never getting out of this mess. So I think this is the most, or the segment that I'm trying to focus on the most right now, is because the rich ones, it's easy. I just save DCA. You're going to be fine. But what do we say to people that don't have this ability to DCA, that don't have this ability to save? How do we convince them that Bitcoin is a great solution and is going to help them? So I think this is an open question in my mind.
That's an amazing question. And I have the end routine where the previous guest asks a question for the next guest. I think this would be maybe a question, and you can form it however you want it afterwards, that you can give then to the next guest. And
does that mean someone's going to give the question?
Yes, someone has a question for you. And before we come to that, before I come to the end routine, I just want to quickly ask you what's coming for yourself and what's coming for Yzer in the next couple of years. Are you working on any exciting new projects? And yeah, what's coming?
Yeah, we're working on something pretty cool. I don't want to talk too much about it because it's a tough market out there, and in Bitcoin, it's very easy for people to replicate what you're doing. But it's touching basically on kind of this class of people that don't necessarily have the ability to do on-chain stuff because of the fee level. So we're working on some new additions to the platform. It's going to come out very soon. So yeah, but ultimately, our goal is education, is free education, keep educating the masses and target developing countries, South America, Africa, Southeast Asia, and so forth. Because we feel that those are the people that need it the most, because of the situation within their country, the country are unstable, in terms of financial opportunities, and we would love to see help them, basically give tools to empower them.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's an amazing mission to be on, and maybe the podcast will come out in around 3 weeks, so maybe I can just link it when it's out then at that time. And I'm looking forward what you're up to and what you're doing.
Amazing, thank you, sir.
Now coming to the end routine, so the previous guest had a question for you. If you were forced to do something creative for Bitcoin, like painting, wood, crafting, song, whatever creative you want to do, or even writing a code or something like that could also be considered creative, what would you do right now?
The question I'm going to ask the next guest now. That's a simple question. I would do a nice a nice painting. I like to paint. It relaxes my mind. So I would like to do a nice little art piece on Bitcoin. Maybe a little sculpture.
Yeah, Bitcoin sculpture, that would be really fun, I think. Really cool. Really cool. Toma, thank you for being on. For the guests who don't know you, who want maybe to get in touch with you and ask you a question about Yzer and whatever, how can people get in touch with you the best way?
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a great conversation. If you want to reach out to me, the easiest way is on Twitter, Toma_7_32. That's my handle. Otherwise, just download the Yzer app, email us at Yzer, and it will get to me somehow. So very easy to get in touch.
Really, really cool. Perfect. Thank you for being on, and I'm looking forward to what you're up to in the coming year.
Thank you so much.